Okay, we got Credo here, and my camera is too high. Oh well, we'll have to do what we can with it. So, to me, this is largely a game I picked up out of not really nostalgia, because I only played it once, but out of kind of this collector. I wanted a copy of it. I wanted to be able to play it. I paid way too much. I mean, originally this came out in a format that is equivalent to, the format cheap-ass games kind of come to. Let's see what they... Well, they tried to sell it for 15 bucks new. I'm pretty sure my friend didn't buy it for that much, although he may have paid more than he should have for it. I wouldn't be surprised if he paid like 10 for it at a con. Probably at Gen Con Origins combined. They did that once or twice. Anyway, what's enjoyable for me about it is that this is a sort of irreverent look at the creation of the church dogma. And I find that amusing and enjoyable. I'm not sure how much it has to really be seen as irreverent, although if you look at the credos that come out of the game, some of them are just plain silly. And that, I think most of them are. And that's actually part of the enjoyment for me, is that you can come up with something ridiculous and you can kind of say, okay, look, obviously this isn't the model of how decisions were made. You can also look at it and say that historically it's not accurate, because most of this was laid down in one council, and you have many, at least 10, to resolve the issue. Now, well, call it 2 historically. But the second was really just a refinement. So, you're not going to see... You see the original Nicene Council, and then you're not going to see anything as drastic as what changes in the game happen after that. And so the time frame of the game, with many emperors, with all this, people getting exiled and all of that, it just doesn't work with it. It doesn't mesh together. There's sort of a cool... If this was handling lesser important issues, it would be very suitable. But that would probably be uninteresting to just about everyone. And on the other side of it, if it's just going to be about the Nicene Creed, the mechanisms behind the game don't work with it. So as a historical art of exploration or something, forget it. This thing is just, it's got things that are interesting, but they don't work together. It's got 2 components that don't mesh to create a historical reality. So you're left with kind of a... okay, I want it because it's amusing, which is why I want it. Or there's some interesting information and concept here in both systems, and you want to look at both of them and kind of analyze them each separately. The idea of, okay, here are all the competing, major heresies or whatever, not all of which were even up for grabs at the Nicene Council. So... even there, it doesn't really suit anything. Just, it gives you a compendium of a lot of interesting little tidbits. Or if you like the political interplay mechanism and don't really care what comes of it, you want to see that play out. As a game, it's okay at best. It's a very random game. It would be a decent amount of fun, but the problem is the components are such crap. Like I said, it's like a cheap-ass game. You come with these sheets of cards that you got to tear out. I did it carefully, and they all ended up okay. But they're still hard as hell to shuffle. They're going to get damaged with use. I guess you could put them in little card sleeves, but then you'd have piles of slippery fish all over the place. The board is pretty much nothing, you know, some sheets of paper. So on that side, there's a high entry cost in terms of preparing the game for each play, because you have to kind of sort the decks and do multiple shuffles, and each shuffle is really, really difficult to do because of these crappy cards. And you're going to slowly damage your cards or throw them all over the place if you've got sleeves on them. If you're me, at least. So it kind of just doesn't work on any level, right? The new edition may have better components, and then if you combine the irreverent fun with a kind of enjoyable game that's not too serious, with a decent amount of luck, you can play it competitively, but it's kind of like playing a game of hearts competitively or whatever. You can look at your hand in a game of hearts and say, well, I'm going to try to avoid all the tricks, or I'm going to try to shoot for the moon. You don't have even that much decision in this overall, but you do have the decision of when to play your key events and when to try to take advantage of them throughout the course of the game. But that decision making may not mean a damn thing if your hand just doesn't work, right? Like the one guy who had a handful of powerful cards, if he had a secular dude and he never could get a secular dude, he never had an opportunity to do anything to try to promote that. He didn't have cards that let him draw for church or anything like that, which would have given him a shot at those secular cards. But I think that's an extreme case. I think normally you have a fair number of choices in your hand that you can play for. There's a little bit of negotiation, but not a whole hell of a lot. If you're keeping track of the score, people can look and see, yeah, that guy's in the lead, but largely the swaying is going to be the swaying of convincing someone what's in their best interest to do. In which case, you know, you might be able to cast things in a better light, but it's more of a PR job than a real negotiation type situation. This isn't sausage making. This isn't deal cutting in a political sense. Usually. There might be a few cases where you could say, okay, look, you support me on this issue that you don't care about, and I'll support you on an issue that I don't care about, and we'll get them both passed, and then we're both happy, and then we can move on to an issue that we both care about, and we'll figure out what to do there, or we're in agreement there already, so this is all good for us, whatever. But I think they're pretty minor in terms of the deal making. Overall, because of the components, because of the play value generated in part from the components, because of the historical issues, I just can't rate this very highly. But I'm really, really glad I have this. The fact that I was willing to pay $20-25 for it, it was a pristine copy, which it won't be with my dirty fingers. I can see marks already. The pipe does terrible things. You know, I'm not going to get that many plays out of it, but how many of my games do I get that many plays out of these days anyway? How many things did I pick up new? You know, if I went out and I bought, you know, just as an example, I got a good deal on Dominant Species, so I'm not going to rag on that too much. But I bought by the same designer Urban Sprawl, which I like probably as much as this. But, you know, it was a $70 game to begin with. I think I got it at $35, but still, you know, spending $25 on something that's got crappy components, but I like just as much and get just as much enjoyment out of is okay. You know, I can't be unhappy about that factor. Anyway, it's not something for a serious student of these matters, except for that lighthearted, irreverent look, I would say. But it might serve as an interesting little amusement within that. Now, does it have to be terribly irreverent? No. I mean, look, you're playing a game on a subject. There's only one thing in the rule book that I think might even be vaguely offensive, which is there's a rule that you have to intone the credo that you create. To me, that sounds like it's verging on blasphemy. So that kind of disturbs me a little bit. On the other hand, I'm glad it's in there because, of course, in my group I do that, or did that when I had a group, and we got a kick out of it. But I feel like, to tell you the truth, I feel like this is a game that you do not want to play with people you don't know really well. If you are a Christian and you take enjoyment out of it, you probably don't want to just break this out with another group of Christians, because there might be a couple who would take some offense to it. And if you're not a Christian and you take enjoyment out of it, you probably want to make sure that the group that you're in is going to be amiable to whatever level of play you play this at. Whether you're very much willing to kind of see the humor in all of it or not, you kind of have to be sure of the people that you're looking at. But yeah, I wanted to let people look at this because I'm always interested in the formation and mutation of religions, and it's sort of one of my key pleasures to look at. I pick up games, not just this, but games that are really almost humorously off of my goal. Like I just bought Heavens of Olympus with this hope that it has some kind of insight into it. I don't think it possibly does, into the formation of the religions and into the myths as well. I'm also into the myths, which is why something like Hammer of Thor or Asgard is interesting to me as well. Just in terms of the story of the myths, I'm good with that, but that's less interesting to me than watching religions competing and fighting. Le Glaive is probably topically what I wanted most in terms of watching the religions and their interplay with the secular world and the military conquests that went alongside, and how one can help the other proceed. But the game just doesn't go into enough details about how the religions actually affect things, how the societal forces are there. All it is a big dual-planar game of diplomacy, which isn't good enough for my taste. I want something that really answers those core societal link to religion issues in a really nice way. And in some ways, this doesn't do that, but at least it gets you thinking along those lines, and I find that enjoyable as well. Enjoyable in a sense that's different from that irreverent, I like sitting around and laughing at what we created out of our Credo. That's just totally unbelievable that it could possibly have come out of any console. I mean, and we may be moving on to a different kind of religious game. Well, spiritual game, not religious. We'll see.